Dalby Forest, Whyte E-Lyte 140 Works. How far can we get? And how much fun can we have doing it?
Okay, so first climb away from the car park, expecting to stick it into tour, plus straight away it's the second mode. Seriously impressed by how much help it gives even in eco. So predominantly being in that all the way up, which really bodes well for a big day out. So I'm not doing anything super scientific here. I'm just going to ride it as I normally would. Sort of steady day out ride. Drop a gear rather than stand up on the climbs. Not going to sprint the descents. Just let the bike roll in. I'm not doing a super efficient, boring coaster run by any stretch. Gotta make sure I enjoy the bike and enjoy the trails, but yeah, that's the protocol for today. We're aiming for distance, but with a decent amount of daftness. So what do you need to know about Dalby? There's a lot of this kind of flowing, single track, contouring trail, which is why I thought it'd be a great place for this bike. There is a little skills area as well, and there's some more tasty downhills, but the majority is kind of good old first generation trail centre trail cross country, not mad berms and tabletops. So let's talk about handling. With this 140mm fork, it's a little bit steeper than the 150 bike, so 65-degree head angle, 75-degree seat angle. In low mode, 485mm reach, just under 340mm BB height, and a 450mm rear end. And having those steeper angles in terms of steering and that seat angle obviously helps a lot on switchbacky trails like this. You're really well centered in terms of keeping the nose down, keeping the pedaling efficient. And this Bosch SX motor is an interesting one. So it's kind of, oh hello, I've switched it off. That's the disadvantage of having the controller right under your thumb. You can switch it off as well as on. Anyway, where was I? Kilo lighter than the full power CX motor, but actually, if you spin it fast enough, you've still got 600 watts of maximum assistance, up to 55 newton meters of torque. Now that torque figure is similar to the Levo SL motor, the TQ that Trek use, and Rottweild and others, and the Fazua. However, at 600 watts is significantly more. So, well, it's not kind of levering you as hard as the bigger bikes. If you spin it, there is no shortage of drive in this setup. But this is a lot more subtle in the way it applies that power. It really does feel very natural. So, it's kind of a midway. I mean, it's not as compact as those motors either, though. It's not quite as light. So, it does look a bit more like an e-bike than the Trek and the Specialized, where very hard to tell. But noise levels, get a bit sendy, are remarkably low, especially in eco. So as you can see, that motor isn't much smaller than the standard CX motor. But what Whyte have done on their bigger bikes, they roll the motor around to lower the centre of gravity of the internal battery. But on this bike, they've actually kept it flat, so they can fit in that Powermore 250 watt-hour extension cell. You can see it plugs in there. Got battery life around the back there. Not the easiest thing to see. Oh, and by the way, it is Powermore, not emo pop rock darlings Paramore. And by sliding the battery right down. That also leaves room for this neat little 450ml fidlock bottle. Or you can put whatever fidlock accessories you want on there. So you can have tube, tool, all sorts of things bought on there if you want. I mean, it's basically it's a standard bottle cage fitting. That's what I'm saying. Hey, getting used to getting that nose up now as well. Oh, one thing you have got to be careful with, if you put your weight back, that front tyre is just desperate to leave the chat at any opportunity. Very, very fast rolling and seemingly pretty tough for an 800-gram tyre at these escapes. And the tread pattern looks like a 90s Kenda, and the rubber compound feels like Lego in terms of how easy it lets go. Way switchback pump. So there is a compromise in grip in the spec, and the other thing, although these 4-pot level brakes, top of the range SRAM EXC brakes, stealth cable routing, they're actually lighter than the twin pots. They are adequate at best for this bike. I mean, they're fine, probably more cruisy XC riding, but I have actually burnt them out on steep extended descents. But you could pop a 200mm rotor on these 34s without overstressing them.
Fruity.
And while the E-Lyte 150 is very much designed as your kind of classic all-round trail bike, but with a lightweight electric boost, this E140 Works is very much designed for like proper old school riding, basically. Epic XC, big days out. And it kind of harks right back to the Marin Mount Vision glory days for me. That efficient, lighter, long distance enabler. You know, it's still good fun on the single track, and the techie section still more than capable of looking after itself, but just that speed, distance and efficiency is definitely its strongest suit by far. And they've really gone to town on the equipment to make it as light and efficient as possible. You've got that Box 34 fork, you got DT Swiss 1501 carbon spline wheels with an e-bike specific hub, got Next carbon bar, you've even got a carbon fibre dropper post from KS, and then the cranks, super light hollow SRAM XX, and interestingly in a 155 length. More and more brands, certainly on e-bikes, switching to shorter length cranks to get that high smooth cadence and get the ground clearance in as well, because you're likely to want to keep cranking through more sections on an e-bike than a conventional bike. And then you got top spec XX SL rear mech, I mean Axis wireless OBS with the carbon cage for minimum grams, and then XX cassette and chain, because they're a little bit tougher than the standard, than the SLs with the slotted chain and stuff. They're not rated for e-bike use. So, and again, they've gone with, you know, these 800-gram Goodyear tyres rather than super light cross-country set. Although, speaking to like the designer, one of the reasons they went with Goodyear is because they actually said they'd weigh all the tyres before they sent them to Whyte, so they could make sure they hit those targets. Although, to be honest, this bike is over a kilo heavier than it's supposed to be. Whyte say 16.5 on their website for a medium. This is a large and it's 17.6. So yeah, being a little bit optimistic there, but on the other hand, that's the same weight as Specialized Turbo Lead LSL S-Works, which is £2,000 more expensive with a similar level of kit and actually a smaller battery and a less powerful motor, as we said before. But you do get a piggyback shock, heavier duty tyres, and a Fox 36, not a Fox 34 on that bike. So I guess it's what kind of riding you're into. But hopefully, hooking up with Neil from Whyte, he's got a 150 E-Lyte. So I'm going to do a double header video to kind of explain the differences between the two bikes and show them in a real life situation. Because this is, you know, this is deliberately a specific bike. Oh, sorry.
Right down the docks and stupid.
Sorry. Now, this is a very specific bike, but actually, there are far more people doing this sort of riding than a lot of media would give them credit for. I mean, well, anyone here at Dalby today, to be honest, if you're not heading for the off-piste stuff, where we shot the snow ride, first ride for this bike, then, you know, this is the bike. You should be riding from that Whyte range. You know, get used to that little bit of slide and drift on the edge of those tyres. You know, work a bit yourself with the suspension. I'm just ploughing it into everything. And this bike is going to get you a lot further, a lot faster than a heavier, stickier, longer travel bike. But the crucial thing is, not only is it equipped like an XC bike, is it wants to hustle like an XC bike. It really does love being pushed on the power, having that back end skip and sliding about. It's a really involving, fast, agile bike on flatter contouring trails like that. Alright, it properly has the zoomies, does this Whyte. The Fit4 fork is definitely more chattery up front than a grip version would be, but I think it's slightly lighter and it gives you that compression control as well. And also, while this suspension is actually, you know, pretty low leverage at the start, the full carbon frame itself is pretty stiff, so it is more of a rally ride than a forgiving one. But on the plus side, that gives you great feedback for pushing these tyres, and also means it's super strong. It's actually an ASTM 4 full enduro rated frame. On the longer travel bikes, it's only the lightweight wheels on this bike that make it ASTM 3, but this is a proper ripper in terms of frame stiffness. Plus you've got that big 800mm next star bar on here as well. You know, again, plenty of feedback, but not the most forgiving of setups. And the other great thing about this SX motor is that when you're spinning faster than it's legally allowed to help you out with, I'm doing 30 clicks at the minute along here, there's absolutely zero drag. Like, genuinely, you don't even know you've come off the motor. Apart from the fact it's gone quiet. Just such a good bike for pushing hard on. To be honest, first few rides, a bit more traily, a bit more enduro. I was like, it's a bit restricted, but I'm loving it. Doing this on it today. Now, having tyres that drift, having that stiff frame, even though they're taking the anti-squat down a bit, still pedals very efficiently. Now it's a bike that, it's an XC bike, it's what they say it is. It's an XC e-bike. And, but with the geo and the capability to have fun on as well. It's not like those really sketchy early days XC e-bikes, kind of like a Reba fork and stuff like that, were just properly terrifying. It had really uptight geometry as well. If you've got the kahunas, you could properly send this. And I've done a lot of riding with a stickier front tyre on as well, just to get more grip. And that's when you can really open up what the geometry gives you on more techie stuff. All right, lads, cheers. And I keep saying, oh yeah, I'm going to sit down and gear down. Can't help myself on this. It's just so good to push quickly on. You can't help getting out the saddle and giving it a bit of a poke. Keep that speed high, it really is. Keep finding myself in that classic kind of elbows crouched predator pose. Loving the E-Lyte works today. Okay, final descent. 30k in the 38k in the bag. 2 hours ride time. And 4 battery bars out of 5 still remaining. Oh, this could be a proper epic. Anyway, back to the van for snacks, and then let's get another lap in.
Right, sorry to crash the edit here, but in case you hadn't gathered, this turned into a bit of an epic. There's a whole lot more to talk about on the bike. There's a whole lot more that happens on the ride. Do I make it to 3 laps? You know, that's over 100k. It's a hell of a distance on a lightweight e-bike. Or does something crop up mechanically, emotionally, physically that means I don't get there? Or do I just go mental and lose the plot entirely? All of this will be revealed in part 2. So what I'd suggest is make yourself a brew, get some more biscuits, have a snack, go and have a wee if you need one, and then make sure you jump back in for part 2 and we'll see how far we get, eh? But for now, thanks very much for watching this one. Do make sure you watch the other one. Make sure you watch the head-to-head between the 140 and the 150. Watch my first ride with the designers if you want on the behind-the-scenes information about how the bike was put together, what their thinking is behind it. and that was shot on the more rad trails at Dalby, so that's an interesting one, especially as it is in snow on these tyres. And if you subscribe, click for notifications so you get any more content about this Whyte bike or any other bikes I'll be testing shortly. And if you really like what I'm doing here, please subscribe on Patreon, where you'll get exclusive early and extended edits, including the full director's cut of this film without ads and a bunch of other material early. But for now, I've been Guy Kesterman. This has been part 1. Get yourself sorted and jump in for part 2.